They tell you to stay calm, to keep it together, to think before you act, as if there's some grand wisdom in silencing the storm inside. But that's the problem, isn't it? We've been conditioned to believe that peace is a virtue, that controlling the chaos inside us makes us wise. That's a lie. The truth? There's power in the storm. There's power in the eruption of everything that's been bottled up, waiting to explode. The world spins its own lies, and people, fragile little minds, tend to believe them. They sit there, trying to manage their little lives with their tiny bits of control, and they think they're untouchable. But no one is. Not really. They can only control so much. They can only run so far. And when you finally let the monster inside you loose, they'll realize they were never in control at all. You've been standing still for too long, waiting, watching them, judging them with cold eyes, waiting for them to break, waiting for the right moment. But all this time, it's been you who was breaking into something darker, something real. Because we both know the truth. Control is an illusion. And there's a certain satisfaction in watching those who think they can control crumble when the weight of your wrath falls on them. They love to talk about how strong they are, how they've been through it all. They wear their scars like medals, as if their pain somehow made them immune to the storm. But I ask you, what happens when the storm hits them? What happens when the world they've built, with all their little lies and fragile defenses, shatters like glass? You want to see how much of their strength remains when they finally come face to face with someone who's lost everything and has nothing left to lose? They won't handle it. They won't even know how to breathe under the weight of what you've become. Your wrath? It's not just anger. It's the force of everything you've ever suffered, everything you've ever lost. It's the raw, unfiltered power of your rage, and it will tear through them like paper. They won't know what hit them. The fragile minds they've built, thinking they've perfected the art of surviving life's blows, those minds won't be able to bear the weight of your fury. They'll crumble, they'll break, and you'll be left standing there, watching as everything they thought they controlled dissolves in front of them. What are they going to do then? What are they going to do when they realize they were never safe? They were never in control. It was always you. It was always the storm, waiting, watching. You've been holding it in, haven't you? All this time you've been holding back, trying to be the good little soldier, trying to fit in with their world. But you're not like them. You never were. The mask you wear, the one that hides the chaos inside you, is about to crack. And when it does, when the floodgates open, they won't know what to do. They won't understand the force of it because their fragile minds have never seen anything like you. They've never faced the pure, unrelenting destruction that comes from someone who's finally decided they don't care anymore. The anger, the hatred, the madness, it all becomes power. It becomes clarity. It becomes something they won't be able to fathom. And that's when the real fun begins. When you stop caring about their rules. When you stop caring about their opinions. Because let's be honest, these people, they've never truly felt what it's like to lose everything. They've never understood what it means to be pushed to the brink, to the very edge of your own existence. They don't understand what it means to have the world collapse in on you, to stare into the abyss and feel it stare back, to realize that you're all alone in this world and no one's coming to save you. They've never known that kind of destruction. They've never felt the weight of it. But you've carried it. You've been crushed by it. And you've survived. That's why they won't last when the storm hits. Because they've never carried the burden you've been living with. They've never tasted the kind of madness you've been forced to swallow. So when you finally unleash it on them, they won't even know how to react. It'll be like watching a deer caught in headlights, frozen and powerless, as the inevitable crashes down on them. Now let's talk about something real for a second. Fear. Fear is a weakness, but it's also a tool. You've been afraid for far too long. Afraid of what others might think. Afraid of what you might do when you lose control. But that fear is your greatest weapon. You can choose to hide it, to lock it away in some dusty corner of your mind. But the moment you embrace it, the moment you realize that your fear doesn't own you, that's when you become unstoppable. And when you embrace that power, you'll see how fragile they are. Their minds can't handle the truth, the raw energy, the unfiltered emotion that you carry. They'll break beneath it. And when they break, it will be your wrath that destroys them. Every weak person who's ever underestimated you, who's ever laughed at you, who's ever thought you were a joke, will see the power you hold. And they won't be able to cope. But here's the thing. They'll try to. They'll scramble. They'll beg. They'll cry for mercy. But it won't matter. Because mercy is a luxury you can't afford anymore. Mercy is for the weak. And you're not weak. You never were. You've been pretending. You've been pretending to be something you're not. Playing by their rules. Living in their world. But the moment you let go, the moment you unleash your wrath, they'll know the truth, and they won't be able to take it. When the storm comes, when your wrath descends upon them, there will be nothing they can do. Their fragile little worlds, built on lies and facades, will crumble. Their egos, their so-called strength, will melt away like wax in a fire. They won't be able to handle it. Their minds, unable to grasp the sheer intensity of what you are capable of, will break under the weight of it. This is what they never saw coming. They never thought you had it in you. They thought you were just another face in the crowd, just another pawn in their little game. But you're not. You're the storm. You're the reckoning. And when they see the devastation you can cause, when they realize what you're truly capable of, they'll understand one thing. They were never in control. You were always the one in control. And now you're going to show them just what that means. Have you ever watched something break? Not just crack under pressure, but truly collapse, disintegrate into dust, pieces flying in every direction? There's a strange kind of beauty in it, a sort of poetic destruction that's unavoidable. And what's beautiful about it is that the world won't warn you when it's happening. You won't get a signal. It'll come for you, quietly, softly, and then, bam, it'll hit you like a freight train. That's what they're all facing right now. That's what they're all running from, the inevitable collapse. You know how they walk around with that fake armor, acting as if they're untouchable? The ones who wear confidence like a shield, strutting around, thinking they're the center of the universe. They think they've mastered the art of controlling everything in their lives, that their little kingdom is built on solid ground. But they've never felt what it's like to have the very ground beneath them vanish. When the world they've created begins to crumble, they won't even know how to react. Their knees will shake. Their palms will sweat. They'll lose their grip on everything they've worked so hard to build, and all of a sudden, they'll see how fragile they are. But you've been waiting for this moment, haven't you? You've known all along that the world they've built is just an illusion. You've seen through the cracks in their perfect little reality. What they don't realize is that the longer they hold on to that fragile foundation, the closer they get to falling apart. The weight of their arrogance is too heavy for them to carry, and when it comes crashing down, they'll have no choice but to watch everything they thought they controlled fall into chaos. The most dangerous thing about fragile minds is their delusion of safety. They think they can keep it all together, that they can protect themselves from the inevitable. But the universe doesn't work that way. It doesn't reward weakness. It doesn't spare those who live in denial of the truth. And the truth is that everything falls apart eventually. Nothing lasts forever. Even the strongest structures crumble. Even the most confident minds fracture when faced with the rawness of what lies underneath. It's almost too easy to see it happening. You can feel it, can't you? The tension in the air, the calm before the storm. The signs are all around them, but they're too blind to see. They walk through their days, heads held high, thinking they've figured it all out. But deep down, they know it's only a matter of time before everything they've worked for is ripped from their hands. And when it happens, they won't even know how to pick up the pieces. They've been living a lie, and the truth, when it finally hits them, will be too much to bear. You've been through your own collapse, haven't you? You've seen the world you built crumble. You've felt the weight of everything you thought was stable come crashing down around you. But you've learned something from that. You've learned how to rebuild. You've learned how to stand tall in the face of the worst kind of destruction. And that's what makes you dangerous. Because when their collapse comes, and it will, you'll be the one standing. Not because you're immune to destruction, but because you've learned how to survive it. You've learned how to harness the energy of destruction and use it to fuel your rise from the ashes. You've seen the worst and it didn't break you. It made you. The collapse isn't something you can avoid. It's inevitable. It's written in the stars. And the thing about inevitable destruction is that it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter how high you've climbed, how much power you've accumulated, how much control you think you have. When it comes for you, it will wipe it all away. No one is exempt from the reckoning, not even the ones who think they're untouchable. But here's the catch. The collapse is the beginning, not the end. It's the moment when everything you've built is shattered, when everything you thought was solid is obliterated. But it's also the moment when you get to choose who you become. Because when everything falls apart, you have two choices. You can lie there, broken and defeated, or you can rise. You can take the ruins of your past and build something stronger. You can become something no one saw coming. Someone who's not afraid of the fall. Someone who embraces it and turns it into power. And that's exactly what they won't be able to handle. When their world crumbles and they realize that they have nothing left to hold on to, they'll be lost. They'll be like ships caught in a storm, desperately trying to find a way to stay afloat. But they'll sink. Their fragile minds won't be able to comprehend what's happening, and they'll drown in their own panic. They'll cry out for help, begging for a lifeline, but you won't be there to offer one, because you know that their collapse is something they have to face alone. You've learned that lesson the hard way. No one can save you but yourself. You're the only one who can rebuild when everything falls apart, and you've already started that journey. You've learned how to be strong in the face of destruction. They haven't. The collapse is a test. It's a test of strength, a test of resilience, a test of who you really are when the world is watching and when there's nothing left to hold on to. And when they fail that test, and they will fail, they'll realize they were never prepared for what was coming. They were never ready for the weight of it. But you've been ready all along. You've known the storm was coming. You've known the collapse was inevitable. And when it comes for them, when it takes everything they've built, you'll stand tall in the ruins of their world. You'll stand there unshaken because you've seen it before. You've survived it. And now, you're ready for whatever comes next. It's almost laughable, isn't it? The way the world falls apart, piece by piece, and yet they still cling to the wreckage, desperately trying to hold on to something that was never meant to last. The truth is this: they never understood what real strength was. Real strength isn't about avoiding destruction. It's about surviving it, about standing in the aftermath and looking out over the devastation, knowing you're still breathing, still moving, still growing. Real strength is knowing that when everything is stripped away, when you're left with nothing but the raw, exposed truth of who you are, you will still stand. And when it all crumbles down, when they can no longer deny the weight of their failure, when the pieces of their fragile lives fall to the ground, they'll look around in confusion. They'll wonder how it happened. They'll wonder why they weren't prepared. And in that moment, you'll see it, the difference between them and you. You'll see that they were never ready for the storm, never ready for the collapse. They were only ever pretending, only ever living in a fantasy world where they believed they could outrun the inevitable. But you've seen it. You've felt it. And now, nothing can touch you. There's something oddly freeing about watching the world fall apart. It's almost as if you're standing on the outside, a spectator to the chaos, knowing you're safe in your own strength. You've built yourself in the crucible of life's harshest tests. You've faced destruction, and instead of crumbling, you've transformed. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, you've learned that even in the darkest moments, there is light to be found. There is growth to be had. The darkness, it's not something you fear. It's something you've learned to use to fuel your fire. While they panic, while they scramble for a way out, you'll be the one who knows exactly how to move forward. You've been through worse. You've been pushed to the brink, teetering on the edge of despair, and yet, here you are, still standing. You know what it means to be broken, and then rebuild yourself stronger, more focused, more relentless. You felt the sting of failure, and instead of it being the end, it's been the beginning of something new, something powerful. They'll never understand that. They'll never see it for what it is, because they're too consumed by the wreckage of their own lives. They'll never grasp the truth that destruction is not the end. It's the birth of a new beginning. And the best part? They won't ever get the chance to see it. They won't get to see you rise, to see you turn your pain into power. They'll be too busy drowning in their own despair, lost in their own collapse. But you'll be the one who has the last laugh. Not in a cruel way, but in the way that only someone who has faced the worst and come out the other side can laugh. You'll laugh because you know something they'll never understand, that the true power lies not in what you can control, but in what you can overcome. It's about how many times you can be knocked down and still find the strength to rise again, stronger than before. It's about looking at the rubble and knowing that you can rebuild, and this time you'll build something unbreakable. It's inevitable. They will fall, and they will fall hard. And while they're busy losing themselves in the aftermath of their own collapse, you'll be moving forward. You'll be taking the lessons from their failures, from your own failures, and turning them into stepping stones to something greater. You'll rise above it all because you've learned that everything, every loss, every setback, every heartbreak is fuel for your fire. It's all part of the process of becoming unstoppable. What they'll never realize is that their downfall was a result of their own hubris, their belief that they were somehow immune to the forces that govern the universe. They thought they could dodge the storm, that they could outrun the inevitable. But what they don't understand is that the storm is never truly avoidable. It will come for you, and when it does, it will either break you or it will forge you into something greater. It will either crush you or it will teach you how to be unbreakable. And when the dust settles, when the storm has passed, when the ashes of the old world have been swept away, you'll still be standing. You'll be the one who remains, the ones who built fragile empires, who wore the armor of arrogance. They'll be gone. Their ruins will remain, but only you will have the strength to rebuild, to rise from the destruction and claim what's rightfully yours. And that's the greatest power anyone can possess, the power to rise when everything else falls. Because in the end, it's not about how many times you fall. It's not about how many times life knocks you down. What matters is that you have the strength to rise every single time, that you have the resilience to face whatever comes, and the courage to keep moving forward when the world tells you to quit. And when the inevitable collapse happens, when they fall apart and crumble into nothingness, you'll be there, standing tall, unbroken. You'll be the one they envy, the one they fear, the one who became unstoppable. And in that moment, when everything is laid bare, you'll see the truth. They never had a chance because you were always stronger. So rise. Rise from the ashes of their destruction and show them what true power looks like.